afternoon, everybody. You're very welcome to our webinar on Brexit and online shopping. My name is Crona Clohessy, and I'm the Public Policy Lead with the Institute. And I'm joined today by my colleague Naomi Clohessy, who is a Public Policy Officer in the Institute. So today we're going to, I suppose, talk through what Brexit has meant for many of us in terms of online shopping. So we will keep the webinar to half an hour, and we're going to cover a couple of different things. We're going to take a look at the VAT and customs charges that might arise, and if they do arise, how you pay for them, and then also what Brexit means for your consumer rights now when you are shopping with the UK from the Republic of Ireland. We will have time at the end for questions, so you're more than welcome to ask any questions using the Q&A function at the bottom of your screen, and you can ask those questions at any stage during the webinar, and we'll get to as many as we can at the very end. But I suppose we'll just kick it off. Just to say the slides will be available, as will the recording, and we will email those to you after the webinar. So I suppose we'll just dive right into it. I suppose this is kind of one of the more, I won't say the word interesting, but more, I suppose, affects most of us. It's been a kind of a stark reality when in January we realised that when we went online to shop with the UK, goods took a little bit longer to arrive maybe at our door, and when they did, some of them had VAT and customs charges applied. So today, I'm just going to really run through why that has arisen. Is there any reason why it shouldn't arise, and really how much we're really talking about? We're going to try and quantify some of these bills today using some examples. So I suppose if I start off with VAT, the free trade agreement reached, I suppose, between the EU and the UK was a little bit, I suppose, misleading. It doesn't always mean free trade, as many businesses across the island have realised. And VAT, it's important to say, VAT was never going to be removed, or was never part of the free trade discussion. So VAT essentially is a consumer tax. And the end consumer, like you or I, when we go online, we tend to book the bill for that charge. So before, when we shopped with the UK, Ireland and the UK were all in the EU, and as VAT is predominantly an EU tax, we never really needed to worry about it because all of VAT was included when we got our final bill, when we ended up in the checkout. So we never really looked at the VAT line on our receipts. But now, I suppose, because the UK or Great Britain, I suppose more specifically, has left the EU VAT area for goods, and now VAT is something that we're going to have to really, really consider. And the unfortunate news is that VAT applies when you buy anything that's more than €22. So essentially, it's probably going to apply in a lot of cases. And the reason it applies is because the Great Britain, so when you go online, you buy from Great Britain, and they're no longer in the EU VAT area. So the EU rules say that when someone buys from outside the EU and they're an end consumer, the VAT liability falls to the person who's importing, and the importer in this instance is the online shopper. So that's why when you get your goods that arrives in Ireland from An Post or on a courier, you might be hit with a VAT charge. Now, when you're calculating VAT, the €22 threshold is not €22. It's not just €22 if that's the cost of the good. It's the cost of the item plus the customs, plus the transport, insurance, and handling charge. So when you're examining this €22 threshold, you need to look at all of those charges, and we'll go through an example of that in a moment. The VAT rate that will apply is the VAT rate that applies in Ireland, which for most goods is 21%. But you should note that rate, that standard rate of VAT, is due to increase in March to 23%. So goods will be a little bit more expensive. The goods that this applies for, unfortunately, is most goods that we would be buying online, unless you're buying things like children's clothing. So that would be clothes or shoes for children that are under 11 years of age. No VAT applies on those. Some books don't attract VAT. Food doesn't attract VAT. There's other, I suppose, oral medicines don't attract VAT. Other things like hearing aids, crutches, those sort of things. So we're kind of really into the area where most things will charge VAT or will attract VAT. So on the customs side, then, so this is kind of the area that caught a lot of people by surprise, because the free trade agreement essentially is supposed to eliminate customs duties, but it only applies for goods that are made or wholly made in the UK or EU. And so for the general rule when it comes to customs is if the good is valued at less than €150, no customs duty applies. So when I say value for customs, I mean that's the cost of the item, and it includes transport, insurance, and handling charges. So when you are looking at that €150 threshold, you need to take all those charges into account before you get there. But it's important to note that the customs duty arises on the cost of goods. So if you buy something that costs €140 and there are €20 of handling and insurance and transport charges, that's 160 in total, which means customs duties could potentially apply. But the customs duty that does apply will only apply to the 140. It doesn't apply to the 160. So again, I'm going to take you through an example of that on the next slide. So when I say customs duties apply, what I'm really saying is that unless the good you've ordered online is actually made in the UK, the chances are customs duties are going to arise. So I suppose before the webinar, I was having a look at what products are actually made in the UK, because if you think about the things that we buy online, we're buying Sony headphones or Samsung tellies or phones or a lot of clothing items that we might go on to ASOS or Zara or anywhere and buy. Most of those are not made in the UK. So that's where the customs charges arise. And the free trade agreement does not eliminate customs duty in those instances. So that is where a lot of confusion arose on the 1st of January. And I suppose just as a helpful maybe add-on, there is a website in the UK called makeitbritish.co.uk. So you can actually go on and check on that website to see if the goods are actually made in the UK. So examples of what I came across were Hot Point tumble dryers, Marmite Cadbury's chocolate is made in the UK, Henry the vacuum cleaner, Doc Martens, and interestingly, boomerangs are actually predominantly made in the UK. They're an Australian product, but they're actually predominantly made in the UK, so that was quite interesting. And one of them, the biggest production, UK make an awful lot of cars, so things like Aston Martin, Mini, Land Rovers, and even some Toyota cars are made in the UK. So when you're online shopping, it is important to note where the good is made. And if it's not made in the UK or it's not wholly made, so that means that maybe you get parts or bits of the product from other countries outside the UK and it's made in the UK, some goods under that umbrella can actually qualify. So if we just kind of take all this into context, what does that actually mean? So I'm just going to use the example of adult jeans. We're going to assume we buy them online. They're not made. They're over the €150 and they're not made in the UK. So we have adult jeans of 159. The handling, transport, and insurance costs are €12. So for customs purposes, that means that the value is 159 plus that €12, 171, which is over the 150 threshold. So customs duty is generally around 12% on jeans. So 12% of 159 is the 1908, and that's the amount of customs duty that you're going to have to pay. Then you need to look at it from a VAT perspective. And unfortunately, when you're valuing goods for VAT purposes, as well as including the handling, transport, and insurance costs, you also have to include the customs duty cost. So that increases the price of goods further. So the value for VAT is 190.08, and then you take 21% of that, remembering that's going up to 23% in March, and that comes to almost €40. So you can see the costs are kind of are increasingly getting higher. So then your An Post or the courier, whoever is handling your goods, they're probably going to charge an admin fee because it's up to them to do the customs declaration and the VAT declaration for you and present you with a bill. So they're going to charge it at €10. And we find, and Revenue.ie have advised that the average charge is about €10. So when you add it all up, then your total import charges are 59, so that's the VAT and the customs, and then the total cost of your goods has now increased to €240. So a pair of jeans that would have cost you €159 in December, okay, give or take the delivery charges, is now going to cost you significantly more at 240. So that's where we've probably seen all the reports in the media of increased prices. So when you actually see it laid out, it's pretty stark. So just taking the other example of jeans that are cost less than the 150, which is the threshold for customs, if they cost €79 and we have the same handling, transport, insurance costs, we don't have customs duty, so the value for VAT is then €91. And when you take 21% of that, that's another nearly €20, as well as the handling charges, and that brings your pair of jeans that cost €79 up to €120. So I think what we can safely say is that it's really the VAT that's the predominant cost here, because that's an example where no customs duty applies and there's still a significant increase in the price of the VAT. Unfortunately, is 21%, which is almost a quarter of the price on top of that. Now, revenue data, you do have further examples of how to apply the charges, and they're well worth having a look at. So one thing, just to say that not all companies are, I suppose, not all companies are not charging VAT and customs duty. So we'll all probably have heard of the example of Amazon. Amazon have said that they will pay the VAT and import charges, or the import charges for the customer, but that's pretty rare. And what that means is that when they sell you your good, they have DDP written on it, which means that all duty has been paid, and therefore you won't get a bill on delivery. Now, I had a trawl through some of the websites in the UK. There's not that many of them doing it, and some of the bigger ones, some of the language on the website can be a little bit confusing, because they tell you at one end that they're not charging import charges, but that's because it's your responsibility to account for the import charges. So just be careful on that when you're looking at some of the websites. If the business doesn't collect the import charges, as I said at the beginning, and Post or the courier company will bill you, and they will complete the customs declaration and they will bill you. So this is why I suppose some of there's been delays in getting some of the products to your door, because that takes time obviously to work out the VAT and customs that are due. So when they do work that out, you will get a notification via text or email, and you will have to go online and pay pay online, or you can go into the post office and pay there. Yeah, so I think that's really all I have to say on the VAT and customs. I know Naomi is going to talk us through some more information on this, as well as your consumer rights. So I'm going to hand over to Naomi, and then we can take your questions at the end.
Okay, thank you for that, Crona, and good afternoon, everybody. So as Crona mentioned, I'm going to run through consumer rights and then briefly touch on what happens when you return goods in this post-Brexit environment. So as you all know, when an Irish consumer buys online from a business in the EU, you have strong consumer rights, and this includes the Consumer Rights Directive. And probably the right that you will be most familiar with will be the right to cancel your order within 14 days of delivery. But there are other rights to be aware of, and that's the right to get clear information about the seller and the product before the contract is concluded, including, for example, information about the existence of the right to cancel and the total price of goods, including any delivery charges. There are also clear rules surrounding delivery and non-delivery. For example, the goods should be delivered within 30 days of ordering, unless a different time frame has been agreed with the supplier. But if you find that this time frame hasn't been met, the consumer is entitled to ask the seller to deliver again by an agreed date, and failing that, the consumer can cancel the contract and get a refund of all costs. As far as faulty goods are concerned, any faults that appear within 6 months of delivery are presumed to have existed at the time of delivery. The trader is first obliged to offer consumers a repair or a replacement, but if this is not possible, or if it fails to correct the problem, the consumer is entitled then to seek a refund, and the consumer should not incur any costs in relation to this. Now, since the 1st of January, we no longer have these rights when we buy from the UK. So the advice from the Competition and the Consumer Protection Commission is to find out where your business is located when you're considering buying online. And it's not sufficient to simply rely on a domain name such as a .ie or a .co.uk, or the fact that the prices are displayed in euro. These details don't tell you where the business is actually located. So it's very important to check the terms and conditions and look for a physical address, maybe on the contact page of a website. Again, if the business is an EU member state, including the Republic of Ireland, then your consumer rights will not change because of Brexit. So what happens if things go wrong? You may find it difficult to resolve issues, well, a little more difficult than it has been in previous times to resolve any issues. That's because your rights under the Consumer Rights Directive no longer apply. And that means that the European Small Claims Court procedure and the EU Online Dispute Resolution Platform no longer accept complaints by consumers against businesses based in the UK. The good news is, though, regardless of whether Irish or UK law applies to the contract, the substance of the consumer's legal rights will be the same, or they're at least largely similar, and that's because the UK, having until recently been part of the EU, has a strong set of consumer laws that are very aligned with EU rules. And this is how it is for now, but it could change in the future. So you should be aware that the 14-day cancellation period no longer applies, but that's not to say, or it's sometimes known as actually the cooling off period. It no longer applies, not to say it doesn't apply. So you should always check the UK website's general terms and conditions. So what happens if I bought a product from the UK pre-31st of December 2020 and it has now developed a fault? Well, if you bought something from a business based in the UK before this date and the product becomes faulty after, contact the business directly. And if the business refuses to fix or replace the item, do request a refund. And if the business refuses a refund at this point, you can contact the ECC or the European Consumer Centre. Depending on the time frame since you bought the item, you may be able to actually request a chargeback from your bank. So the key things to remember if you do buy from the UK: can you return the item if you change your mind? Can you cancel an order before it is dispatched? And do you have the right to return the item? And if you can return the item, who pays for the cost of returning? Will it be you or will it be the business? So I'll now look at what happens when you return the item in relation to getting a customs duty and a VAT refund. So you are entitled to a refund if you and if you paid directly to the retailer at the point of sale, you will apply to the retailer and you'll receive these as part of your overall refund from the retailer. However, if you pay to the postal service or courier company on delivery, which I know is happening a lot now, you should apply to the postal service or the courier company directly for a refund. So to summarize, with all of this in mind, it's important for Irish consumers when buying from the UK to remember that VAT and customs could end up being your responsibility. And if these aren't paid, you might not receive the package. So it's very important to check where the product is made, be aware of any delays due to mistakes with paperwork. And if you have actually been charged the UK VAT incorrectly, do contact the company. Most importantly, make sure you are buying from a reputable retailer, and you should carefully read the website's terms and conditions to ensure that you are happy with the retailer's policies. And when doing business with UK retailers, the old saying of caveat emptor does apply. So there are some information slides there where further information can be found. The Competition and Consumer Protection Commission is very helpful. Revenue has some useful examples on calculating import taxes, and Plus has details of the changes and how to pay the charges. At this point, we're actually going to now take some questions if you have any.
Thanks, Naomi. Just looking, there's a few questions coming in here. And the first one I can see here is an order on the Apple.ie website of some hardware accessories which were made in China, and they went over the 150 threshold. So there was a concern that he may have to pay VAT and duty when he received a tracking email on the evening confirming that his order was shipped from the UK. However, the package was delivered by an Irish DHL operator without any additional charges. And I think the question is, can Apple do this? And do they have some special arrangement that nobody else seems to know about? So I suppose I'm just wondering, have Apple decided to pick up the charges maybe for VAT and duty? Because generally, if a product is made in China and then it's shipped directly to Ireland, you generally would have import charges on that because China's obviously outside the EU. Now, the fact that it's been shipped, a notification being shipped through England, I don't think that really matters. So I actually don't know the answers to that. It could be a case that Apple have decided to pick up the charges on that. It could be a case that it was missed. But I'm not aware of any special arrangement. I know Amazon, as I referred to earlier in the presentation, they have said that they will pick up the tab, I suppose, for the import charges. Now I know they're also looking at an Irish warehouse, which will probably get around all those sort of issues. But no, I'm not aware of any case in Apple, and I'm just wondering how that they've really gone around that. I suppose the other example, the kind of famous example, which I know it's not a Chinese example, but was the Marks and Spencer's Percy Pig example, whereby those Percy pigs are made in Germany, and they are then shipped to Ireland via the UK distribution hub. And in that instance, Marks and Spencer's were hit with an import charge because the goods had been deemed to leave the EU in that they went from Germany to the UK and then re-enter the EU when they were sent to Ireland, because no significant change or development or enhancement was done in the UK to those products. They were simply unpacked and repacked, and import charges arose there. So I'm interested in that Apple example. I don't know the answer, and I'm just not aware of any special treatment. So I'm just looking through the questions. So there's a question in here: is there a list of customs duties anywhere for different items? And did we not pay VAT before for our goods from the UK? So there's two questions here. So if you want to check the customs duties that arise on your product, you need to go on to the EU's TARIC website, so TARIC. And then there are literally thousands of pages there. So you put in your item and you'll be asked to describe the item in as much detail, and then it will tell you what rate should apply. So if you do want to get a sense before you buy something, it will tell you. I can't even give you a range of any customs duty range from 0 right up to 70 or 80%. Now, probably on a lot of the products that we're buying online, they're in around the 0 to 20% bracket. And the second question is a really good one, and it's: did we not pay VAT before for goods from the UK? So so we did, in a sense that the price of VAT was already built into the price that we paid for the good. And so we never really had to look at it as a separate thing. So when we went online and bought something for $99.99, the VAT was included on that. So in theory, that should really translate into the goods really becoming a little cheaper from the UK, because now the company selling you the item doesn't have to account for VAT. So I'm not sure if that's been translated into reality. Anybody I've talked to has said that they definitely haven't noticed a decrease in price. So that's a really good question in there now. Another question is Irish VAT added to the UK price inclusive of UK VAT, or does it replace UK VAT? So that's a similar question. So the UK seller to an Irish customer should not be charging UK VAT. So it is only Irish VAT that applies, because the goods are treated as imports, and the VAT rules say that it's the importer's responsibility to pay the VAT. So if you order something from the UK and you see UK VAT being charged, that is incorrect. And I would advise that you contact the seller to establish to tell them that UK VAT should not have applied. So definitely not. The UK VAT should not. Essentially, Irish VAT has replaced UK VAT. So I'm just going to. So there's another question in here. If you send goods back to the UK, what paperwork will you need to give, say, to An Post to reclaim VAT and customs charges? So anpost.ie /Brexit, they have actually some details on that on their website. And there is a form that you need to fill in. It's a CS23, I think, off the top of my head. There's information on that, and on that you will have to tick the box that you are returning those goods. So to make it clear that, so essentially you do have to make a customs declaration to send the goods back to GB, and then the GB supplier will take it from there in terms of repaying your VAT and customs charges. So that's what you do there. So there's another question in there about how do customs or An Post normally contact you to pay customs, and there's an observation that there's a lot of fraudulent texts and emails going around. Yeah, and that's the unfortunate reality that we're in, that there are a lot of texts and emails. So generally what you will do is you will get a text or an email from An Post with the details of the product that you've ordered. So you just do need to be very vigilant and make sure that you're not being asked to, provide bank details or anything like that to take payment. So I would really be looking at the legitimacy of the email that you have, because there are some very advanced scams, and to contact An Post or your courier directly if you are unsure before you do anything. That would be my advice there. So there's a question here. Confirming there would be no customs if product is valued at more than 150 but made in the UK. So that's absolutely right. If you buy something that costs more, is valued at more than 150, and it is made in the UK, there are no customs, because that's under the terms of the trade and cooperation agreement. Let's see. So there's a question. We have a lot of questions coming in, and I'm very conscious of time. We've got a minute left, so I'm going to just pick one last question. Sorry, there's so many. So there's a question here about, do we get your lecture notes? Yes, the slides will be circulated, as will the recording will also be available. So there's one there on, so this is the last one we'll take. There's one, the goods were ordered before the 31st of December, but the delivery has been delayed. And it's quite a significant cost. So the question is, do the new arrangements apply? My sense is that you should fall under the old arrangements, because you did place the order before December 31st. I think you'd need to contact the supplier there to see why there's been a delay, because obviously the 30 days that Naomi talked about there is a little bit in jeopardy. So the old rules should apply. Now there are some arrangements for goods in transit and all that, but that's kind of more on the business end of things. So what my suggestion would be is to contact the supplier in that instance.
Okay. Great. I think that all that's left to say is to thank everyone for joining us today, and to reassure everyone that although Brexit has changed our daily lives, with these new processes, they will become easier as we all become more familiar with them in this new post-Brexit world. So I'd like to say from both of us, thank you for listening.